Hey everyone, welcome back. We've been taking a look at film to develop your film language, to pay attention to some of the deeper elements within a film and how film conveys ideas. We're going to continue that today as we examine camera movement and placement and then also the lighting. The first term, and again, these terms are coming from the handout that I put online for you to be able to download, and so I'm just going to go through this systematically to develop our language so that we can at least communicate and about different elements within the film, and then have a common point of reference, and also to get you to be more aware of what is actually out there and how film conveys meaning. Let's take a look at a rack focus. A rack focus is when the camera changes focus from the foreground to the background, or vice versa, from the background to the foreground. And so it's whenever something is in focus and then it changes the focus to something else. And mainly it's just a technique that the filmmakers use to manipulate where the spectator looks. And so it's suggesting this is important, now I want to switch it to this is important, right? And so I wanted to show you an example of this. This comes from The Lion King. I'm going to kind of turn down the volume because I'm going to talk through it. I want you to think about what's the implied camera distance. So as we go through this, what's the implied camera distance? Okay, extreme long shot. Implied camera distance. Implied camera distance, right? Keep going through. Keep thinking about this. Implied distance. Long shot. Implied distance. Right, medium, long shot. Medium. Extreme long shot. Keep thinking about these things. And then I'll show you when the rack focus is. What's this one? Extreme long shot. What's this one? Again, there's decisions that directors use, right? Again, what's the implied distance? Implied distance. Implied distance, right? As it changes. Think about this. Here's the rack focus coming up. Right here, rack focus. Foreground's in focus. Shifts to the background. That's a rack focus, right? So it focuses on the ants, and then it shifts its focus to the zebras. That's a rack focus, right? Changing the focus. And so just different techniques to think about, right? Here's another example. This one comes from Top Gun, the rack focus. The idea here is that you're going to have the tension between Maverick and Iceman as they do the rack focus.
The elite. Best.
Implied distance.
We'll make it better. Fly at least 2 combat missions a day, 10 classes.
Look how Iceman's looking at him, kind of looking him down.
Now in each combat
Rack focus. Maverick's in focus. Shifts focus to Iceman.
We're going to teach you to fly the F-14 right to the edge.
And then back to the focus of Maverick, right? And again, the staging is important because Maverick is closer to us than Iceman, so we're supposed to identify with him and not Iceman, right?
Elected officials, civilians do that. We are the instruments of that policy.
Another rack focus.
We're not at war. We must always act as though we are. What are you doing? Tip the spear. Just wondering. Let's be sure.
Okay, and then deep focus. A deep focus is when both the foreground and the background are in focus at the same time. Some people argue, and I tend to agree with this, that it's a more powerful shot because the spectator has to pay attention to both the foreground and the background at the same time, right? And I wanted to show you a famous clip that comes from Citizen Kane. And I want you to think about how long this particular shot is, right? So most of the shots that we've taken a look at within the contemporary world are about 3 seconds long. This one's going to be a lot longer as we go through. But I want you to think about the deep focus, that the foreground and the background are in focus simultaneously. We've talked about this particular film before. This is from Citizen Kane. The first shot that we see is Charles Kane's extreme close-up of his lips as he says Rosebud. Now they're delving into his past as they go back to his childhood to understand what Rosebud means. There's Charles Kane as a young man, throwing it at the boarding house. Okay, this is going to be the same shot, right? So he's in the background, and his mother and father are in the foreground.
I'll sign those papers now, Mr. Thatcher.
But both of them are in focus. And so what Orson Welles is arguing is that we need to pay attention to what's going on in the background and the foreground.
I don't see why we can't raise our own son just because we come into some money. If I want, I can go to court. A father has a right to. A boarder that beats his bill and leaves worthless stock behind. That property is just as much my property as anybody's, now that it's valuable. And if Fred Graves had any idea all this was going to happen, he'd have made out those certificates in both our names.
However, they were made out in Mrs. Kane's name.
He owed the money for the board to the both of
The
us.
bank's decision on all matters
I
concerning
don't
Mrs.
hold with signing my boy away to any bank as
I
guardian
want you to
just
stop
because...
all this nonsense,
The bank's
Jim.
decision on all matters concerning his education, his places of residence, and similar subjects is to be
The
final.
idea of a bank being the
I
guardian.
want you to stop all this nonsense, Jim.
We will assume full management of the Colorado load, of which I repeat, Mrs. Kane, you are the sole owner.
Where do I sign, Mr. Thatcher?
Right here, Mrs. Kane.
Mary, I'm asking you for the last time. Anybody'd think I hadn't been a good
The sum
husband,
of
a father.
$50,000 a year is to be paid to you and Mr. Kane as long as you both live, and thereafter to the survivor.
Well, let's hope it's all for the best.
It is.
Why I can't raise my own boy.
Again, this is all one shot, right? It hasn't cut away yet.
Everything else, the principal as well as all monies earned, is to be administered by the bank in trust for your son Charles Foster Kane until he reaches his 25th
Here's the first
birthday,
cut.
at which time he is to come into complete possession.
Charles!
So as Orson Welles focuses on the foreground and the background simultaneously, what you have is his mother Mary is signing Charles over, the stewardship of Charles over to Mr. Thatcher. And Mr. Thatcher, who is a banker, is going to then raise Charles. And so this is an examination of what happened to Charles in his childhood that caused him to be a little bit, caused him to act the way he's going to act. I'm trying not to give away any plot spoilers here. But we have to pay attention to both the foreground, his mother doing this, and then the innocence of the child kind of just sledding out back, shouting Union forever, suggesting he has that ties to his father, who is protesting, signing him over to Mr. Thatcher, suggesting there's that connection between them. And so this all is part of the ongoing narrative as we think about what does that rosebud mean, this kind of mystery as we are unfolding. We have to kind of piece these ideas together. A point of view shot is when the viewer sees what the character sees in the film, right? Or what the character in the film sees. And so it's as though we become characters within the particular film. And so it's us seeing the character and then us taking a look at what the character is looking at. And so we're seeing through the character's eyes. I think I have an example of that from Vertigo. Here we see his name is Scotty. He is a police officer and he's chasing this villain on the rooftops of San Francisco. Scotty's played by Jimmy Stewart. Here we're going to see a point of view shot as we look at Jeffrey's face and then he looks down. That's a point of view shot. We're seeing through his eyes, feeling what he feels. Then we see him, and we see another point of view shot as he hangs helplessly from the rooftops. And so And this is a way, again, to getting us to kind of identify with the protagonist, to feel what they're feeling, to experience what they're experiencing, to invite us into the particular film. Let's take a look at a high-angle shot and a low-angle shot. And again, we've talked about this before. Anytime something deviates from the normal way you and I would see the world, it's for a reason, right? And so a low-angle shot is when the camera looks up from below the character, and so the camera is low, looking up high at the character. And so traditionally, this is used to make a character look powerful or threatening, right? It could be a way to make someone look more heroic if we're looking up to that person, or more villainous, something that we're supposed to be scared of, and so more monstrous as that character towers over us. Just depends on the context. The context is important. It could show a moment when someone is about to fall from grace, to highlight the tragedy of that particular fall. But again, we don't necessarily go around, crouching down, looking up at people as we walk across campus or we walk across town, right? That's not how we normally see the world. And so anytime the film deviates from that, it's going to be for a reason, because the driving force of a film is to get us to identify with the camera, for the camera to be us in the film, to see the world. And anytime the director says, okay, we're going to deviate from the normal way we're seeing the world, is for a reason. So when the director drops that camera down and looks up at a figure, it's going to be for a very specific reason. A high angle shot is when the camera looks down upon the character. So the camera is up high, looking down on a character. And so generally, if we're up high looking down on someone, this is someone that's going to be inferior or weak or frightened, right? So when we're kind of towering over someone, if we're the one towering over someone, then we're put in a position of power. And so it could be that we're looking down on someone, or it could be, if it's the protagonist, we could be looking down on the person because that character who we're supposed to identify with is powerless. And so it could be a way to create intensity for us, the viewer, not necessarily to make us feel powerful, but the exact opposite, to make us feel weak, because the protagonist is in a weakened position, and then we identify with that weakened position. And so it's all about context. I want to show you a couple examples of this. The first one comes from The Birds, and you see Melanie walking up. She hears some strange noises in the attic. There's been some bird attacks already, and so she's going to go in. We see the high angle shot as she walks up the stairs to show her vulnerability. We see a close-up here to continue to identify with her and the suspense of her opening up the attic door. A point of view shot, we see her and then we see what she sees, and the birds start to attack her. And then another high angle shot looking down on her to show her weakness, to show her vulnerability, making us feel weak and vulnerable as well. And again, it's deviating from the normal way we see it. We're not like going around campus and jumping up on a ladder and looking down on people, right? That's not how we see the world. This is something that's more metaphoric, to get us to think about something, a feeling about what the character is feeling, right? Again, to show her vulnerability, that nature is attacking. These Dionysian forces are coming back to destroy these Apollonian forces of science, technology, modernization. And she's completely helpless. Now, Mitch is going to come through the door to save her. And we're going to see him from a low angle showing his power to be able to come in and rescue the woman. right? Camera angles are very important. They also help to convey meaning within a particular film. Another low angle shot as they carries her down the stairs, which is different from when she was going up the stairs. We had the high angle shot looking down on her. As he carries her down the stairs, we have a low angle shot, right, showing his power to save her. And so the camera angles help to convey meaning and ideas. Here's another one that's kind of interesting, Dr. Strangelove. If you haven't seen Birds, go ahead and watch Birds. Put it on your bucket list. You'll never see Birds the same way. And if you haven't seen Dr. Strangelove, you have to watch this. What you're going to see within this particular clip, let me give you a little bit of context here, is General Turgensen here, who's closer to us, has just unleashed a nuclear strike against the Soviet Union. This is during the Cold War. And he's the only person that has the power to call back this nuclear strike to avoid a nuclear holocaust. Mandrake, here, who's played by Peter Sellers, is trying to convince him to call it off, and he's going to be extremely powerless. But this individual has all the power, so we're going to see him filmed from a low angle, right? So he's going to demonstrate his power.
I'm the only person who knows the three-letter code group.
Then I must insist, sir, that you give them to me.
Low angle shot, his power, he's not going to give up. He's kind of a madman, just bent on destroying the world.
You are threatening a brother officer with a gun.
Low angle shot for his power.
I suppose it never occurred to you.
But again, this is deviating from the norm, because normally when we're talking with people, we're seeing them at eye level, right? That's the normal way. And so what we do here, drops it, deviating from the normal way, and that subconsciously tells us, right, information that this person has power.
There will be only one course of action.
So there's so much more that goes into film than just the dialogue.
Total commitment. Mandrake, do you recall what Clemenceau once said about war?
No, I didn't think I do, sir, no.
He said war was too important to be left to the generals. When he said that, 50 years ago, he might have been right. But today, war is too important to be left to politicians.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Taking a look at a God's eye view is a shot that's directly above the character. Sometimes it's known as a bird's eye view. The camera looks straight down on the character. This is an ultimate high-angle shot, which more often than not, generally when they show a high-angle shot or a God's eye view shot, it indicates time of moments of death within the shot. And so if you've ever seen The Sixth Sense and you're paying attention to the camera angles, it will help you to know what's going to happen within the film. It kind of helps to foreshadow the events. Here's an example coming from a Sappi film called Notebook. Right here, you have within this particular scene. This is a spoiler here, but you have Noah going in to see his wife who is suffering from dementia. And the only way that she remembers is by him reading this notebook to her throughout the day, and then eventually she'll kind of come back and remember him. But here, it's kind of at the end of the film, and he sneaks over to her. They're both kind of in this retirement home. He sneaks over to see her one last time, and they converse. I'm going to kind of skip ahead here a little bit because there's a lot of dialogue that I don't necessarily want to demonstrate. I want to demonstrate more of a camera technique of the God's eye view. Here is the morning. We'll talk a little bit more about what this particular movement is. But as the nurse comes in and sees that they both have died, right? Then we see this God's eye view shot that indicates their death as though their spirits are rising up heaven. And generally, when you see that God's eye view, that's not, again, that's very different from the way we see the world. And so it conveys a very specific thing. And so if you pay attention to that, it generally indicates a moment of death within there, and you can kind of get that sense. And so Nicholas Sparks, ultra sappy, but it does demonstrate that one specific technique. A Dutch angle is, here is another example of that from Catching Fire.
Remember who the real enemy is.
This one's not going to be a literal death. This is not going to signify a literal death, this bird's eye view or God's eye view shot. It's going to be more of a metaphoric death. Notice the camera, the implied distance, right? Entering into the space. But entering into the space of both Katniss and, I can't remember the other guy, played by Donald Sutherland, the bad guy. We get into his intimate space because we're going to see his powerlessness to Katniss's wrath.
Katniss, get away from that tree!
Notice how we're close, we have a close-up of her, but we have a medium-long shot of him.
Katniss, get away from that tree!
Close-up of Donald Sutherland to show his realization of his powerlessness. His realization that he now has no eyes to see what's going on.
To top Heaven's Bay.
Sir, we've lost power.
God's eye view to show her metaphoric death, right, as Katniss. And this is going to be her resurrection as the Mockingjay. Another God's eye view. God's eye view close up, getting us closer as the crane comes down to pick her up and carry her away to begin her new life, right? As this symbolic revolutionary figure that's going to take down the whole system. Kind of an interesting point of view shot as the crane comes down and grabs her. God's eye view. Right? But again, it generally indicates something. A Dutch angle is when the camera shifts the plane, right, diagonally, to represent a world out of control, a world that's amiss. And we see a lot of that within Thor, where Loki comes in and he messes up the world, and then Thor has to kind of make it right. So it's a way of indicating some type of chaos, right? We see this often within Mission Impossible, if you've ever seen this film. Dutch angle.
The actualist is
To suggest that the world is off balance.
He was one of ours.
And Ethan Hunt here is starting to figure out that he's been set up, and now he has to set it right. But again, this is deviating from the way we see the world, and so it's supposed to be disorienting.
The mole's deep inside. And like you said, you survive. I'll show you something, Ethan. Since your father's death, your family's farm has been in receivership. Now, suddenly...
Now we get kind of the regular kind of shot rather than a Dutch angle.
Your father's
But then we're back to the Dutch angle and a close-up to show the inner state of his mind, right?
America, after all, can be
As he's
very
trying to
nice.
process the fact that he's been set up. So he's disoriented,
Why don't we
he's frustrated.
get out of here onto a plane? I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset. All right, Hunt. Enough is enough.
Low angle showing his power
Has been killed, and you have done it using loyalty.
as a representative of the government.
Shake hands with the devil, that's fine with me. I just want to make sure that
Dutch
you go
angle,
to
low angle Dutch angle. To convey specific meaning. All right, let's take a look at camera movement. Camera zoom is when a stationary camera adjusts its lens so that it appears to be bringing us closer to or further away from the action. So a zoom in, bringing us closer to, a zoom out, bringing us away from, through magnification. So the camera itself isn't moving, it's just changing the magnification to make it seem as though it's moving. Usually used to emphasize something important. But most of the time, Hollywood does not use zooms because they look fake, right? Because as you zoom in, everything is just getting bigger, and the whole idea of the camera is to mimic the way that we see the world. And so, more often than not, they'll use a dolly shot because that movement, right? It's not just about getting that one. It's just mainly about getting that one character bigger, not everything else around it. A dolly shot is when there is a camera on a platform with wheels that is attached to a track. Thus, it has the ability to move in any direction that the director wants, right? So it can move forwards, backwards, sideways, right? So a dolly in shot is when the camera moves closer to the action, and a pullback shot or dolly out shot is when the camera moves further away from the action. I wanted to show you a clip from The Touch of Evil, the opening scene from Touch of Evil. And again, I want to stress that this is only one particular shot. And so you're going to see Charlton Heston, who's supposed to oddly be someone that's Hispanic. And I don't know how they try to get away with that one. But anyway, he's from Mexico, and he's taking his wife over the border. And you're going to see them within this busy city, kind of walking through town, and that dolly shot is going to be able to move freely with them to get us the sense of that we're walking along with them. Extreme close-up on the bomb. I'm going to put it in the trunk. Notice how the camera moves, right? So we can kind of sense that it's moving, kind of following along the action as though we're the character in there, we're following it too. What's interesting here is they're going to put this on a crane, right? So that kind of goes on a crane, and it gives us a high angle shot so that we can see these individuals as they go in the car and they drive through the streets. So it's now on a crane. Kind of following him through town. And again, this is all one shot, so if anyone messes up as they cross the street or anything, they have to start all over with the extreme close-up of the bomb. Here's Charlton Heston and his wife. Trying to remember what her name is. It'll come to me. So now they've gone off the crane. The camera operator is off the crane now, just kind of following along. As they head towards the border. But again, there's the idea of a deep focus. We're supposed to be paying attention to Charlton Heston and the car with a bomb in the trunk because both of them are going to then now merge, right? Pull back, and it gives us a sense of motion as though we're moving along, we're walking along with them. Janet Leigh, I think is her name.
What?
Philadelphia.
The name is Vargas.
Hey, Jim. You see who's here? Sure, Mr. Vargas. Out on the trail of another dope ring? Out on the trail of a chocolate soda for my wife. Your wife?
Yeah, you're right, officer.
Hey, can I get through? A lot of talk up here about how you cracked that Grandy business. Yeah, we hear you caught the big boss. Only one of them. The Grandys are a big family. Good night. No purchases, Mr. Lineker.
Hey, I got this.
You're American citizen, miss?
No, I got this ticking noise.
Yeah, okay.
No, really, this
Good night.
ticking noise in my head.
Mike, do you realize this is the very first time we've been together in my country?
Do you realize
And this is going to be the first
kissed
cut.
you over an hour?
Right, but the dolly shot kind of gets us into the action. It's a way of inviting us into the action. A tracking shot, I think that's the next one that I have. A tracking shot is when a camera is on a dolly that's attached to a track. That gives a much smoother kind of feel. The dolly shot can kind of bounce a little bit. Tracking shot gives it a much smoother kind of feel, and we'll see that within Indiana Jones with Raiders of the Lost Ark as he runs through this this old ancient tomb. Tracking shot as he runs through, right, kind of tracking along, following along, giving that motion.
Give me the whip. Throw me the idol. No time to argue. Throw me the idol. I throw you the whip. Give me the whip. Adios, señor.
Again, think about applied distance, right? Close up, medium close up, right? As he struggles his way through. Thinking about a pan and a tilt. I know I skipped those for just a minute. I want to go back to them. A pan is when the camera pivots to look from side to side. And so again, the camera is supposed to mimic us. And so it mimics our head. And so this is when we're looking from side to side, all right? And then a tilt is when the camera pivots to look up and down, right? So it's just kind of like our neck moves up and down, right? The camera is going to follow that same kind of motion. A crane up or crane down is when a camera is lifted and lowered by an actual crane. And this generally, what this does is it frees us from the viewer from the ground, and it gives us a greater sight. And so generally it's used to convey this idea of an extreme kind of a high angle shot to give us a greater sense of the surroundings, and we've seen that within Touch of Evil. Okay, this one, I just wanted to show this one real quickly. This is coming from Vertigo, and what we're going to see is a zoom out and a track in, to convey that sense of vertigo that Scotty feels, because we saw I showed you a previous clip where he's hanging from the rooftops in San Francisco as he's chasing a criminal. That gives him a sense of this anxiety, this acrophobia. And as he returns at the end to this particular cathedral, he's going to look down and he's going to feel vertigo. And this is a way that Hitchcock's trying to get us to feel that vertigo, right? Zooming out and tracking in to provide that disorienting effect. A Steadicam is kind of like a dolly shot, except it's gives a little bit more versatility. What you have with a Steadicam shot, as you see here, is the camera is attached to a harness, and then the camera operator wears this harness over his shoulders, giving the operator the ability so that he or she can walk or run, and the camera will pretty much remain steady, right? And so they can jump up and down, and it still maintains that level of steadiness. And what this enables it gives more flexibility than a dolly shot. A dolly shot's going to be a little bit more bulky. This can get into crowded scenes that you want to shoot a little bit more easily. It can go up the stairs and down the stairs, which dollies obviously have a harder time with. And so this gives a lot more flexibility. But it's pretty heavy, right? And so they don't use it a whole lot. They just use it for specific moments within a film. Just to show you a Steadicam shot, this is coming from, I believe this is Sense and Sensibility. Or, no, maybe it's Pride and Prejudice. Steadicam shot, right? So we're there's a camera operator with this harness, enables him or her, I'm not sure who the camera operator was, to move freely throughout this very crowded party that they're having.
They have a beautiful grape. Of course, Caroline's a much better rider than I am. Of course.
Follow the action, follow the individuals. Again, we get close-ups, we get a tilt here, going from the shoes to the face. We got another kind of pan as we see, I think that's Mr. Darcy, if I remember correctly. But it's a way of immersing us in the action. We feel that we're at the party, right? And that's exactly what films do. We can feel as though we're dancing along with these participants.
Well, at least Bingley has not noticed.
No. I think he likes her very much.
But does she like him? There are few of us who are secure enough to be really in love without proper encouragement. Bingley likes her enormously, but might not do more if she does not help him on.
She's just shy and modest. If he cannot perceive her regard, he is a fool.
We are all fools in love. He does not know her character as we do. She should move fast, snap him up. There is plenty of time for us to get to know him after the match.
I can't help feeling that at any point this evening, someone's going to produce a piglet and make us chase it.
All right, we'll leave off there. But you get the idea of that sense of immersion within the particular film. I wanted to show you a clip here from Bourne Identity, and I want you to think about not only what is the implied camera distance, but what's going on with the camera. What type of shot is it, right? So again, I'm going to kind of play it a little bit lower so I can kind of talk with you. Okay, kind of shot. We have a Dutch angle, medium close-up, medium long shot, Dutch angle to a close-up, right? We have kind of a dolly in to a close-up, medium shot for those individuals. Notice this right here, God's eye view, showing that his life has changed. His life of just an ordinary person is now over. Now he's going to be tracked by the governments. We had a pan there. We have some pans here as he's kind of moving through. Low angle shot as he runs through. We got a high angle shot. Another low angle shot. Kind of a dolly in from a medium shot to a medium close-up. Got a medium shot here. Dutch angle, and then we have the pan. Extreme close-up. All this, I just want you paying attention to these elements, right? Steadicam. Steadicam as he's walking up the stairs. Medium close-up, or a medium shot to a medium close-up. Got a tilt, kind of moved up. high angle shot as they're going up the stairs. And a pan there, or sorry, a tilt. And a tilt. High angle shot. It's actually kind of like a high angle Dutch angle. Got a kind of a steady cam shot, a shaky. Extreme close up. Low angle. Extreme close up. Point of view shot. As we go through, right? So I want you paying attention to these, right? Kind of want this to be automatic as you're going through and thinking about the camera movement. All right, the last thing I want to take a look at is lighting. Hollywood has what's known as a 3-point lighting system. What that means is there's going to be a backlight, which is going to provide some type of a way of making the shoulders kind of pop away from the background. There's going to be a key light, which is going to be the brightest light that's shining on the individual. And then there's a fill light that's supposed to fill in the shadows, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be that the key light's on the left-hand side and the fill light's on the right-hand side. They can swap them, right? The key light's just the brightest light, and the fill light just kind of fills in the shadows. And so low key lighting, what that means, and it's kind of a misnomer because the key light's really the brightest light. It really just means low fill light, right? So that means this fill light is not very bright. And so here you see the key light that's shining on Humphrey Bogart's face. This is from Casablanca, as he's contemplating about why Ilsa has left him. And then over here you have a low fill light that's creating this shadow on his face. And then you can see the backlight on his shoulders. You can see there's this rim, it's also known as rim lighting, on his back shoulders and kind of the back of the head in order to make him separate from the background, right? Just to make him kind of have that three-dimensional look that they're going for. So that's the 3-point lighting system. Whenever there's low-key lighting, generally that's supposed to evoke kind of intense moods, moments of darkness, moments of anxiety, moments of difficulty. A lot of horror films are shot in low-key lighting or suspense, right? In this particular film, this particular moment, this is kind of a dark time for Rick as he's struggling to compensate, or not to compensate, but struggle to come to terms with his past. And so they chose low-key lighting. There's also high-key lighting. So again, what we see within this one is coming from North by Northwest. You'll notice that there is a key light shining on Cary Grant's face, and then the fill light fills in almost all of those shadows. And so high key lighting, and then you can notice also just the rim light or the backlighting here that's just on the shoulders. You can notice that there's a bit of light that on him to kind of separate him from the back, and just kind of a halo around his head to kind of that three-dimensionality. High key lighting is generally used for moments of happiness or comedies, right? Not necessarily something that's deep or dramatic. But as we think about how lighting is used, we're going to end this semester by taking a look at Casablanca. And so I'm going to kind of introduce some of these elements to you. I want you to think about the lighting and how we can use it to interpret information, right? Based on the lighting, can you tell who the heroes and who the villains are within this particular film? And so we take a look at, I think his name is General Strasser. I think he's a general. As we take a look at him, is he a bad guy or a good guy? As we take a look at Captain Renault, is he a bad guy or a good guy? Again, you can kind of tell that the key light's coming from, in this particular shot's coming from the right-hand side, and then there's a low fill light on that on our left-hand side. Same kind of idea with Renault, but this time the key light is on our left-hand side and the fill light's on the right-hand side. So again, where is he at? Is he good or bad? As we take a look at Rick, is he good or is he bad? In this particular moment, he's going to struggle throughout, right? So there's going to be some moments where he's good, and there's going to be some moments where he's bad. And so lighting is part of telling the story. As we take a look at Ilsa, is she good or bad based on the lighting? As we take a look at Victor Laszlo, is he good or bad based on lighting? So lighting can tell us a lot of information. Who we're supposed to identify with, who we're not supposed to identify with, how the character is feeling at any given moment, how we're supposed to think about the character at that specific moment. So it conveys a lot of information. So if we pay attention to the camera distance, as we pay attention to the camera movement, as we pay attention to the lighting, we can extrapolate a lot of information that the director wants us to be able to pick up on, and we can have a deeper appreciation of film.